Today we are going to kind of explore some motifs that we've been exploring throughout the novel so far of the bell jar. And so one thing I'm going to ask you to do in just a second, just so you're kind of clear on what we're doing, is to kind of come up with motifs that you've identified throughout your reading. So the first question is, how do they compare to some multiple media we're going to watch? We're going to look at a song, video, we're going to look at the lyrics themselves, and then we're going to look at a painting when all said and done. And the ultimate question we're going to have by the end of today is, how can all three of those work together to go towards your feminist critique that you have to do? Because remember, one of AP's mandatory writings, I suppose you could say, is some sort of cultural critical lens theory essays. And so I'm kind of asking that you do the feminist one. So we should be good on that. So in just a second, we are going to kind of brainstorm together some motifs that you've noticed just to kind of break the ice on this. And then we're going to go into our first phase, and that is to watch an unfamiliar song, video, and of course to look at the lyrics themselves.
Around the last chapter, chapter 20, around pages 236 through 237, there was a part where she was talking about the landscape of her mind and her soul and how it was changing around her. It says, right after the description, she said, "I remembered all of it, but they were a part of me." She was talking about how the snow sort of melting off had sort of a numbing effect on her. I took that to mean that it was her releasing the coldness of her mind and her revealing who she really is to the world as well as herself.
I found that darkness was prevalent throughout the book. And if you turn the page, it's the first page of chapter 14. In my book, it's 170. It was completely dark. I felt darkness, but nothing else. And my head rose, feeling it like the head of a worm. And every single time that she seems to mention darkness, it seems like she's insignificant, and no matter what she does, she refers to herself as being kind of like a corpse, and she's underneath the ground, and she's trying to battle her illness, but it keeps fighting her back, and it's just the darkness is overwhelming her, and in her own little bell jar, she just can't escape the darkness.
Also, on the darkness part, she talks a lot about the motif of whiteness, but in a negative aspect. So on page 56, in the third paragraph, he talks about his teeth being white, but it's not really positive. It's almost creepy. And there's certain other parts in the book where just the color of white is conjoined with a negative image, and it brings about a really weird picture because darkness is usually considered evil, but in this book, Esther seems to think that white is perhaps more morbid than dark is. Maybe dark is more like safety. And white is more blinding, bright, that light is going to harm you.
You said creepy and weird. Suppose you could come up with something better on that. What is creepy, I guess, about the white? What do you really mean by that?
Almost clandestine, not really of this world, sort of ethereal, and maybe not where she wants to be. She's not comfortable with it.
Okay guys, good. Really good connections with the motifs. We're going to go to the next step now. So all of you should have a copy of Bad Romance, the lyrics, on your desk right now. So now what I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to read through them with a partner right now. You're going to kind of read through it for a general feel of what Lady Gaga is trying to say. And you're going to annotate on this. Any notes that you have that sort of connect to the bell jar. It could be something related to the motifs we just saw. It could not. It could be something new. It might trigger something new. So take about 5 minutes to read through it, mark it up, splice it up, do whatever you have to do to it, and I'm going to come around and kind of listen to your conversation, and then we're going to watch the music video. So take about 5 minutes to do that, okay?
I want. And love and revenge are juxtaposed multiple times, so that might mean that it's not really love, more less.
She doesn't want that to be married. She doesn't want to pray down because that's what society wants.
So show me some things that y'all have been trying to find in here.
This is really
Okay, so we found that there's a lot of drama in the book The Bell Jar, so we underlined drama. Then also there was the beach motif, so we noticed the word sand, as she mentions in the lyrics. Also we said that Esther is saying I want you, I need you, and or Lady Gaga is, but that relates to how Esther thinks and speaks, because she thinks from her perspective and such. And then also from I want your love, I don't want to be friends. That's when she talks to Erwin, and then later Erwin like after she loses her virginity to Erwin, and then Erwin talks to her and he's like, when can I see you again? And she says never. So, and that's like, I don't want to be friends because she doesn't want to see him again after that. And
Okay.
she just
So you made a bunch of connections like on the surface, but like go back to the beach and the sand thing for a minute. How can you look at the beach and the idea of water and sand as a bigger motif that like contributes to a bigger concept in the book? Like that's surface level, so how can you show like what a beach might symbolize or something? Like why is that relevant? You know? I mean, can you?
I know she tried to drown herself off the beach. So, and the song it's a connotation, it's really negative. So, dragging.
Just consider, I guess, like what a beach represents. You said she tried to drown herself there. So are you saying that it represents destruction? Are you saying that,
I
like,
mean, the waves relating to sand kind of could because they constantly crash onto the sand, but then the ocean could also represent like an endless, like limitless possibilities kind of.
yeah.
Because a beach usually seems like peaceful. Like people go out there to calm their nerves or seek peace, and Esther seeks peace with death. She tries to drown herself, and anywhere she tries to drown herself, like drowning or hanging, it's a peaceful death. It's not violent like a gun or stabbing herself.
Yeah.
We noticed that she says caught a lot in the Bad Romance, and that I think it has a lot to do with the bell jar, the way that she always feels confined and trapped, and that the life she has is not her choice. So I think that's very relevant to this song when she says caught in a bad romance. And another thing we pointed out when she says, I want your leather studded kiss in the sand, we said that Esther is also this desperate. She wants something no matter how bad it hurts. And she's always obsessed with this fact of like hurting herself to feel pleasured later. And so that's part of, you want to add on to that here?
Yeah, and I think on the back page, it's all over. It says, I want your love, and then it says, I want your revenge. So love and revenge are very opposites, like light and dark ideas. So that played in with that kind of motif, the light-dark motif, but more of the idea basis, not visual.
Okay, so now we're actually going to watch the video itself, and you'll notice on your handout that it says textual evidence. Well, anything print, audio, visual, all of those are texts according to the definition. So when it says textual evidence, if you see anything on here that again relates back either to something specifically in the lyric or in the novel itself, I want you to write it down. Because remember, the ultimate goal is that can you see how these multiple media compare and contrast? So can you find the relationships between what you see here and what you read and comprehend like that? All right, so we're going to watch it once, jot down notes as you go, and then we're going to, again, kind of talk in pairs and do a whole group thing right when we get done.
So it's cool where she says, she doesn't have more time to process her, and the song that crosses, like right before the bridge of the song is usually the most like intense part of the song. And then I thought it was like she was turning to religion kind of thing at the end, like she's having all these different thoughts about sexuality. And then Esther thinks for a minute about what it would be like if she was a Catholic nun. Towards the middle of the book, like before her nose died into the asylum and all that. And so she kind of turns to religion and just thinks about it for a minute, just like she does.
Well, in the video, she kept changing outfits, and I thought back to the bell jar, thinking about how she kept changing her personality, kind of. And so I thought you could relate it to the fact that maybe as she changes the outfit, she's changing into different people, like how Esther changes her personality throughout the story. Yeah. Like in the beginning, in both of them, they were both wearing white in the beginning, like in the magazine with Esther, and when she was at Belsize, they asked her if that was her in the magazine wearing the white dress. She said that wasn't her. Because at that point, she was in a dark period in her life, and she was wearing dark and neutral colors, the same as they were doing in the video. And at the end, they both wore red, maybe to show them they overcame it.
you should have your chart out on your desk that asks you to kind of compare the novel to the song, to the lyrics, to the actual video. And now we're going to look at a Frida Kahlo painting done in the 1930s called The Two Fridas. I want to show you two things. One is, in one dress, it's more European in style, and the other one is more Tijuana. It's a Mexican kind of traditional garb. It's hard to see, but this one heart is cut open, and this one's not. In this hand, she's holding scissors, and in this hand, she's holding a locket, and Frida Kahlo had just gone through a divorce with Diego Rivera, and so this is a locket of her husband, former husband. This was a really big struggle for her. And once you kind of see this, I want you to just jot down some of your original notes or your original thoughts on this based on how perhaps this painting, the woman itself, can reflect something in Esther's life and or in Lady Gaga's videos. So take a minute to write that down in your chart right now.
Everything.
Okay. All right, so you see the scissor where it cuts the vein?
Yeah.
Right, you see the blood dripping? It's like on the top and the bottom. And then these the lines draw little cages almost.
Oh, dude.
It's crazy.
It's like a cage.
Maybe that symbolizes like...
It might just be
The one on the left is restrained
bad
somehow.
art.
Yeah, but not only that, we can relate that to Esther because she's caged in
In the bell jar.
If she's trying to clamp that
Lady-
vein, or she's cutting it open.
I think she's cutting it open.
It looks a
It
lot
looks
like,
like she's trying to clamp it.
No, because look, the other one has it wrapped
but
around
it's
her arm.
dripping though. Like you can see it's dripping.
Yeah, so...
All right, so tell me some things that y'all noticed in the painting.
All right. I like the background is very turbulent looking, like it's like a storm is brewing.
So how does that relate to the bell jar at all, or the song?
Conflict
Specifics, come on.
mutually exclusive things. Like she can't be both this person and this person. And there's a conflict between the person she wants to be and the person she is.
Okay. What'd you get?
I like how half her heart's in one place and half the heart's in another. So it's like she's trying to be two people at once, but it just won't work exactly. She loves both the cultures. Like she wants to stay traditional, and because she's wearing the traditional Mexican garb, but at the same time she wants to be free and free thinking like the Europeans are. So I think she's just trying to embrace the best of both worlds, and is like it's breaking her down a little bit. So I guess that relates back to the background, and sort of like how Esther was having trouble like deciding who she was, because it was more based on who she was more based on what society wanted rather than what she wanted. And I think she's the woman here is going through the same thing.
So how can you take what he said and apply that to like feminism? Like what does that say? If you can use that logic just for a second, then you can tell me what you thought.
I'm sorry, I was going off my own tangent.
Oh, you were going on your own thing?
Sorry.
All right, well, let me ask, do you understand what he said? He said he feels like it's being pulled at like two different things at one time. There's two different identities. So what do you think that might suggest that this implies about the role of women? Like that's the overall goal, like what we're going for.
Well, I suppose you could say the fact of women are expected to act a certain way, be a certain way, say like Frida is on the left side, but when all people have their own individuality, no matter what their gender is. So when it comes to you being a different person from who you're supposed to be, you sense a tension, and though you may try to walk away from it, say like with this single cord, if you try and separate yourself entirely, you're going to cut that bloodline, you're going to collapse. You won't survive without it.
You've kind of completed looking at all three, looking at the video, looking at the painting. You've read the book. I want to just quickly brainstorm a few things that are going to help you kind of work on your essay itself, which you'll do in class. So one of the questions on your handout asked you to define the role of males and females. So let's look at Bad Romance real quick. So how would you say men are revealed or portrayed in the song itself? Anybody? And I'm just going to jot down a few things that you had to say on that. Yes, sir.
I'd say that the notion is predatory.
Predatory. How so?
They seem, well, for one, they were bidding on the women, like the sex slave, so that's kind of predatory.